show you how to do whipped potatoes. This is more of an Irish thing. Actually, potatoes is more of an Irish thing. Whipped is probably more French. And that comes from my mother. My mother is of French origins, I guess you could say. So anyways, you want to start with your potato, or patatas, and you want to cut them into not overly big pieces, but you don't want them really small either. You just want them so that they all kind of cook relatively evenly. And we've got our newest patron, Senor Ozzy.
Ozzy.
He's very involved. He likes to see the potatoes. He just likes to see whatever's going on at the counter. He always figures there's something here for him. Right, Ozzy? Right? Yeah. Now, you want to rinse the potatoes. Very important when making good potatoes is to use old potatoes. I don't mean old as in they've been sitting in your cupboard for 6 months. I mean potatoes that stay in the ground longer. So in Canada we have something called winter potatoes or baking potatoes. Those are the best ones to get. They're also referred to as russet potatoes. I'll show you the bag. At least this is the bag. Russet potatoes. That's what you want. They're old and they're good for baking because they have a little less starch in them. When they have less starch in them means when you go to whip them, because we're going to use the beaters and whip them, the more starch you have, they become more pasty as they thin out, which you don't want, which is why you want to try and rinse off as much starch as you can before you boil them. By the way, when you go to boil them, you want cold water, not hot. Not even warm, cold water, and sort of like your traditional rice trick, about one knuckle above the potatoes.
Where, Nina?
Yes, I know the rice. So, we'll start our potatoes boiling, the gravy, and making it from that broth that came from the pork roast of the instant pot. We talked about taking the fat layer off the top. So if you look, you can see that fat layer.
Oh yes.
So you want to just peel it off. If you don't get all of it, it's not the end of the world. It just means that you'll have a little bit of oil in your gravy, which is okay. Pork fat is the best. It's the most flavorful. Ask any chef, will tell you. So, for our pot, just because I'm going to use it for our dinner tonight, I'm not going to make a ton, but I want to use a pretty good portion of it because I really like it. So I'm going to do about half of this little pot. And we're going to start bringing that up to the boil. This is our flour. So to use just a nice little jar. And this is a great way to get your gravy thickener started. So I use these big two heaping tablespoons of flour. We're going to use some of that in a minute, but we're going to use cold water. A lot of people think you need to use hot water when adding it to flour. But you're going to end up with lumps. So you want to use cold water. Colder the better. You want to use about the same amount of water as flour. And we're going to put in about 1.5 teaspoons of our beef base. Put the lid on. And now we can give that a good shake. And you can see it's going to combine really nicely in that jar, and it's going to come out pretty much lump-free. And now you don't want to stir in all of it all at once. You want to kind of gauge it. So I put in about 1/3 of it, and we're going to kind of see how that thickens up. You can always add a little bit more later if you need to. You can always add water if it comes up too thick, but you want to kind of take your time with it. You don't want it to be too crazy. If you do end up with any lumps, you can just run it through a sieve. That's my sieve. Got one of those, you can sift out any lumps you get in your gravy if you happen to get them. So, you can just sieve that. Beautiful. This is our gravy. So it's not super thick, but it's fantastic with potatoes. These whipped potatoes that we're gonna do. Here, come and have a little taste.
Good looking, good tasting. Very good.
If you poke around, you can feel how firm they are. If the fork slides easily into them, they're probably close to being done. As soon as they hit the top of the water, they should just slide off your fork. So that's how you'll know if they're done or not. They are ready for mashing and whipping. Beating and whipping. So I'm gonna mash them first. This takes our big chunks of potatoes and gets them into smaller bits of potatoes. And now we're going to beat them. So I'm going to give them a little whip. You can see how it almost looks like rice now. They're just broken down into nice smaller pieces. Not much butter in here. That's not really enough butter. I'm going to use it with this. I like adding lots of butter to my potatoes because it makes them a little more creamy. You want to get the butter introduced first because the potatoes are still hot. Start adding some milk. About 2 tablespoons at a time. A little higher speed. And you can see how they're starting to come together. Probably do it. Using the beaters introduces a lot of air into it. You can see they're nice. They're still thick, but they're just fluffy. Fantastic. You want to go across the grain.
Yeah.
excited.
Oh, so good. I'll try first. Oh my god. Look at that.
This is so familiar to me. This is the way we used to have it when I was a kid.
Wow. Very, very fluffy.
Fluffy, creamy, light.
Creamy.
Mm.
Sarap.
Okay, go away, we're eating.
Kain po tayo.
We'll catch you later. Bye. Let's go eat.
Tignan niyo kumain.
Tara na.
Kain muna po kami.